Chapter 2. In every corner, there's a niche. Nathaniel knelt on one knee at the place where his bookshelves met his DVD shelf and finished tying his bright white sneakers. He smiled admiringly at them before curiously watching Boss fly between the Harry Potter books and Harry Potter movies and knock in the corner where they met.
"Hey, Bunny! Could use a little dust out here,"
Boss yelled. Nathaniel looked to Flem, who sat on his shoulder. Flem kicked towards the corner as if to say, "Look there, not at me, you big oaf." He was obviously grumpy about the way the day was turning out. A 4-inch by 4-inch square door swung open, cutting the books and movies through their middles. A fuzzy-headed, bronze-faced, scruffily dressed, cat-eyed, inch-tall girl stood in the opening.
"What did you say there, bossy man? You need some dust?" she asked,
and smirked at Boss before taking notice of Nathaniel staring down at her. This made her thoroughly uncomfortable.
"Ugh, boss, he's looking right at me."
"I know, that's why we need the dust,"
Boss said, nodding.
"Oh,
Perked up Bunny.
no problem."
She held out her hands, bent her head over them, shook like a wet pup, and caught the sparkles that fell from her fluffy hair before blowing the small pile toward Nathaniel. Flem quickly jumped from Nathaniel's shoulder into the niche. Nathaniel took in one mighty breath, and with a single tingling sneeze, popped up into the air, shrinking until he was not even an inch tall, only to be caught by Boss and thrown into the corner's niche. The landing was rough and unceremonious. From the floor, Nathaniel watched the corner door that protruded towards him closing. It read Lyso on the left and Torium on the right. He could just barely see his giant room vanish from sight, and fear sickened him. This was it. His room was on the other side of that door, the place that had kept him alive his entire life. Timidly, he inhaled and exhaled. Where there would have been a cough that morning, now there erupted a giant smile.
"Boss, I'll catch you later. I'm going to turn in what we got, even if it ain't all that impressive,"
said Flem from behind Nathaniel.
"Sure."
Boss waved him off.
"Let's go,"
he said, and helped Nathaniel to his feet. Nathaniel stabilized, looked at his hands, body, and feet, then up at Boss.
"Whoa, you're big,"
he said, stupefied by this new stature. Bunny poked him in the tummy and said,
"You're small, Needy, my man."
"You know my name?" Nathaniel asked with surprise.
"Course I do. I've been working your niche for years. I'm Bunny."
She stuck out her hand. Nathaniel took it to receive one firm how-do-you-do shake before the conundrum around him stole back his attention. He walked between Boss and Bunny through a city that was several stories high and made from bits of everything. Light posts glowed without the need of flame. Papier-mâché had been molded into shops. Quarters had replaced the wheel spokes of a passing bicycle. Socks had been made into waste bins. Buttons were sold as hats, and beautiful homes were carved right into the wood of what Nathaniel assumed was the inside walls of his house. Nathaniel spotted one sprite leaving his home by means of a strange elevator basket. His eyes followed the rope tied to this basket down a pulley system that connected to a massive hamster wheel driven by a mouse with bunny-like hindquarters. Some homes sat just above the shops and had stairway entries, but the higher he gazed with his neck craned, the more homes he found were only reachable by flying. Doors faced out to thin air. This made Nathaniel wonder about what had Flem called them? Sprites? Why did some have wings and others didn't? Why were there so many different colors and different types? He watched the hustle and bustle around him. Some sprites wore suits like Boss, but most compiled their clothing of random bits of plastic, paper, leaves, sticks, furs, flowers, cotton balls, and twine. Nathaniel thought about Boss's textile remark and figured if he had a choice between a manufactured suit and a hodgepodge outfit made from bits of everything, he'd take the latter too. Nathaniel's attention was then drawn to a squatting purple sprite digging in a bin, which looked suspiciously like one of his superhero socks. Bunny followed Nathaniel's gaze and yelled,
"Hey, June!"
June looked startled and made to run.
"I see you!"
Bunny called. June pushed the bin over and headed off. Bunny jumped after her and tackled her a few sprinting steps away from the knocked-over bin.
Don't mind that, just business,
Boss said, and he pulled Nathaniel more forcefully ahead. After walking a few blocks, Nathaniel noticed a reoccurring sale item in many of the shop windows. Lined up by the dozens were bright yellow spray bottles. The words "Grit the Gook" boldly labeled this obviously popular product. Its slogan, "With this true grit, what gook can stands it?" was advertised on windows, posters, and many stand-up boards along the path. A young, pale, almost translucent skinned sprite in a flat cap and overalls held up the product at his own bottle-stacked stand, yelling, "Get your grit gone with the best deal anywheres! Right here, fresh from the source! Grit the Gook! Wholesale! No better deal! Multi-purpose use! You got a mess? Grit the Gook! You got a top that won't pop? Grit the Gook! You want a look to get the looks? Grit the Gook! Spray it in your hair for a shine, and you'll be looking just fine!" Wait a second, Nathaniel thought out loud. Grit the Gook. Isn't that what Flem said? Boss stopped. Nathaniel, caught by surprise, bumped into Boss and dropped his thought.
This is it,
Boss said. Nathaniel looked to the building in front of him and almost did a backbend trying to see the top that vanished into darkness. He imagined looking up at the Empire State Building might feel very similar. "What is this place?" he asked in awe.
Headquarters, of course,
Boss replied. "Oh, that was fast. What's it headquarters of, exactly?"
Oh,
Boss sighed.
everything.
They stepped into a large vaulted room through tall, slender doors. Before them stretched a reception desk from wall to wall. Behind it sat merely one single, pink, pointy-eared sprite, whose ears weren't just pointy. They were a good length above her cotton candy hair pointy. Nathaniel couldn't stop staring at them as they approached her in the otherwise empty room. "He's expecting you," her voice echoed in the cavern-like space. A portion of the desk slid into itself beside the receptionist, leaving an opening. A sound of gushing wind filled the room. Nathaniel peered into the opening and saw a hole beneath him. His hair flew upward in the wind, spouting from the darkness below. "I don't understand," Nathaniel gulped. "Are we supposed to go down there?" The receptionist giggled.
It's okay.
Boss said.
Take my hand.
Nathaniel did so uncertainly.
When I say so, just take a step.
Boss said with a nod. They were right on the edge of the dark chasm. Taking a step did not seem like a good idea, but Nathaniel remembered what Boss had said. As long as he's with Boss, he should be fine, or at least he knew Boss would be fine, and he gripped tighter to the sprite's hand.
Okay.
Boss nodded again.
Now.
They took a step. Amazingly, they did not fall, but instead, with a lurch of the stomach, they shot up into the air. For a moment, Nathaniel was blinded by light. He was pretty sure they were outside, but it was only a few seconds of complete confusion and fear before they landed on a balcony. Nathaniel's legs were like rubber, and he sat down accordingly. Boss lifted him back up just as Nathaniel's vision started to adjust to the light, and he saw they were at the tip of a massive dirigible. Before he could even mutter the word wow, he was being pulled through large brass doors. The light in the room was just as intense as outside. Nathaniel rubbed his eyes and took a second stab at focusing. A desk sat silhouetted by the one window that stretched the length of the room. Behind the desk stood the largest sprite in both height and girth that Nathaniel had yet to see. This giant of a sprite took his three-fingered hand from its place on the window and clasped it in his other hand behind his back.
So this is the lucrative Nathaniel Thatcher,
the deep voice stated to the silent room.
The largest lysozyme factory on the East Coast.
Nathaniel furrowed his brows and opened his mouth. With a quick squeeze on his shoulder, Boss warned him to stay quiet.
I understand today is your 12th birthday,
the sprite stated. Nathaniel looked to Boss, who nodded. "Yes, sir," he responded.
"And you made a wish as you blew out your candles."
"That's right."
"Tell me, when was your first memory of making such a wish?"
Nathaniel hesitated.
"Let me simplify the question. Can you remember ever making any other wish? The wish you made today. It's your only wish."
Nathaniel swallowed hard.
"I don't need you to answer. I know,"
said the giant male figure as he turned toward him.
"Come here."
Nathaniel timidly approached and was baffled to stand only as high as the sprite's belt.
"What do you see out the window?"
he asked with a gesture out beyond the glass. Nathaniel looked out and his jaw parted. "Whoa," he muttered. It was his town. He never thought he'd see it from such a height. Directly below was his house. Surrounding it were about 20 other homes, the courthouse perched up on the hill, and Main Street stretched out from it for 2 whole stoplights. "It's my town," he said, looking straight down to get a better peek at his house. Was his mother home yet?
"Look closer."
The sprite handed Nathaniel a strange pair of binocular-like spectacles with knobs on the temple. Nathaniel put them on. "This is crazy. I can see right up to the houses."
"What else do you see? Look down at your house."
Nathaniel did so, and the man turned a knob on the spectacles. The image zoomed in even more. "Geez," Nathaniel exclaimed, amazed. "Wait, what are those?" Sprites were all over the place. A couple seemed to be scraping green stuff off the roof of his house. He panned his head over to the sidewalk and saw at least 1 sprite on every person, 2 on a dog, and yet another windsurfing above a car that drove by. "Sprites, right?" Nathaniel answered himself. "Man, they are everywhere."
"That's because this is our town, too,"
the man said, taking the specs off Nathaniel. Nathaniel got a good look at his face for the first time and didn't like what he saw. This did not look like a sprite or a man. He had rough skin, multicolored brown, green, and yellow, no hair, and a bulbous nose. The expensive suit did not seem to go with the feeling of him. "I don't understand," Nathaniel managed to say. "What does this have to do with me?" At this moment, a tall, dark figure sidestepped into the room from a corner door and hung there. Everyone looked over to him, but with the big man's dismissal of the new presence, the focus went back on Nathaniel.
"Every human gives purpose to our kind. You have been especially useful. Tell me what you wished for,"
said the large sprite seriously. "But you seem to know," Nathaniel murmured, backing away.
"Tell me,"
he said, advancing on Nathaniel. Trying to be brave, Nathaniel stopped backing away and asked, "Why?" This was the first time in Nathaniel's life that he was out doing something. The first time he was seeing and experiencing new things. And it was the first time he believed that telling someone what he wished for might actually forfeit his wish. He wasn't about to give that up to some bully, at least not without a detailed explanation and good reason. The giant man set down the binocular specs and started to move his warty 3 fingers toward Nathaniel. Boss stepped in quickly.
"Sir, no need to pressure the boy. Just came for permission to take him to Midtown. We already tried to get him to tell us the wish. He won't do it. His mother really ingrained in him those superstitions, the ones that were once law to all kind. He isn't letting up on the wish one."
His ramble hastened.
"And it's still our law, after all. In fact, he won't even go under a ladder or open an umbrella in the house. Really, you'd think, yes, yes."
The boss of Boss waved him quiet with impatience. He looked as though the next words were really hard to say.
Take him then. Thank you, sir,
said Boss with a quick tug on Nathaniel's arm, and led him all the way out the brass doors they had entered through. The large man turned back to the window and put his hand up onto the glass.
You know what to do,
he said with a grumble, and the tall man in the corner exited after Boss.